and welcome back to another episode of the Caffeinated Librarians.
Whoa, a different opener.
Whoa.
No one else was doing it.
Way to go, Joe.
Because
Amanda
usually does it, but Amanda wasn't paying attention.
Amanda was dancing.
I had a song stuck in my head,
to no music.
so I'm over here like, it just gets in my head. You're just like, yeah. Sorry.
So what are we talking about today, guys?
Spiderhead.
Listen, can I go first?
All right, already getting into it. All right, first off, I want to... Okay, hold on. So for those of you who don't know, Spiderhead is a movie that just dropped on Netflix that stars Chris Hemsworth and Miles Teller. And it tells a story about an island.
And Journey Smollett. Am I saying that right?
Huh?
Yeah.
Journey Smollett is also in it.
Journey Smollett. I'm sorry, I didn't count her.
Is she related to Jessie Smollett? Or
Yes.
okay.
She's his sister.
Oh, fun.
And it's the story, basically, of an island where prisoners have an alternative to be sent to this place where they experience freedom, they can cook, they have their own places, they can do whatever they want on their time. The only thing that they have to do is be guinea pigs to an experimental pharmaceutical drugs that alter their emotions and or personalities to a certain extent. And so, Lewis, now you can tell us your thoughts.
All right, so you guys know how big a fan of Jurassic Park I am.
Yes.
If you're not a fan of Jurassic Park,
When I saw that movie, I was captivated, I was intrigued. It was the movie that made me love movies. I feel like Spiderhead so badly wanted to be that kind of movie, and it wasn't. It was really, really generic, really, really disappointing. I feel like, did you guys see Ex Machina?
I really
No.
want to do, but I've been reading a lot of reviews.
Even ripped off the dancing scene.
Exactly.
When he started dancing, I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah. I was like, Ex Machina, it was like you felt uncomfortable in Ex Machina because you were supposed to feel uncomfortable. This, I had no feelings.
Yeah.
And he's just dancing, and I'm like, I was like, I don't know if they want it to be a comedy. I don't know if they want it to be, fully science fiction. I don't know if they want it to be artsy. They couldn't pick where they wanted to go. Chris Hemsworth, as much as I really like him, he was not weird enough.
I liked him in this.
Yeah.
I thought, I don't know, I thought he captured a really good, like edges shaved off tech bro pretty well. But, they definitely could have gone way further with him.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I couldn't get past his bad American accent
See,
to...
do you mind if I comment on that?
Sure.
Did you ever see a movie called was it called 12 Strong? Chris Hemsworth plays a Texan who's like a Marine, and they go into Afghanistan and everything like that. He has maybe the worst Texas accent I think I've ever heard in my entire life.
It's really hard to get a real Texan
Yeah.
accent without being there.
In this, I didn't think his American accent was that bad. And you know what? He has the most, whatever setting his trimmer was on, that was like the perfect stubble.
Oh, yeah, no, really beautiful beard on him.
Terrific. Like, I wish I could get stubble like that. It's hard.
Yeah. You took the
Being a
words right
celebrity
out of my
has
mouth,
words.
Lou. I couldn't stand the movie. I had a really hard time watching it, going through it. I was like, is this movie over yet? No? Oh, okay. And it's just like, I couldn't really pinpoint what I didn't like about it. I didn't like all of it. So it's like you really hit the nail on the head for me about why it just did not.
Like you were saying, it couldn't commit to anything hard enough.
Yeah.
And it's like the opening scene, they give the guy a drug called Laffadil, and he starts laughing, and it's like, is this meant to be a joke? Is this sort of are they going for sort of like a Pynchon Vonnegut sort of thing, where it's like, oh, it's all like goofy sci-fi and they couldn't nail that tone. It was just sort of like this flat, sterile Netflix tone.
Right.
Yes.
And I mean, especially when one of the scientists, I think his name is Mark, read the statistics of the amount of people who died in the Rwandan genocide, and the guy kept laughing. I'm like, you couldn't.
Well, that was the point.
Well, I know it was the
Was
point, but
it's
it's
supposed to be. So, the original short story by George Saunders, Escape from Spiderhead. This was another one of the sci-fi. I'll start by saying sci-fi is a very interesting category to experiment with when it comes to challenging moral philosophy and trying to understand trying to answer the age-old question of what makes us human. Mm-hmm. And this was another way of doing it. Then again, this movie basically didn't. It only took a little bit, but it's like the basis was Escape from Spiderhead, but then it kind of veered off course and kind of started doing its own thing. So I will say it's a very interesting concept to play with, but it also, the whole point was that innately, Escape from Spiderhead, I have it here, humans are supposed to be innately like empathetic, and we're highly against like inflicting pain and discomfort on other people.
Yeah.
But it's mainly on innocent people. So these it's another example of like free will and testing somebody's free will and stuff like that as well. There's a lot of philosophical concepts that go into it, and I'm sure the story, I didn't have a chance to go deeper into it, but I did some research on it before going into the podcast to know exactly what the movie and the short story were trying to achieve with this, because as you said, the movie couldn't really pick what kind of message it wanted to send necessarily. It felt more like, it always feels weird when you're tweaking somebody. Mm-hmm. Just a little bit like the Rwandan genocide, him laughing through it. That just meant like, oh, the drug works, but that's kind of a bad thing that he can laugh through something that was
horrendous.
A horrible, horrendous thing. So it's stuff like that. So is it that we are programmed to, kind of ignore the things or find something funny within a tragedy, or is it because these drugs look like they're just amplifying emotions. Mm-hmm. So is there something in our brains that innately, we find not as, we don't think of it as horrible? Is it like society that makes us think something is horrible, or is it just the individual mind that innately thinks that, oh, it's not as bad, or
so then why
finds it funny? I don't know.
These
There's
are
a lot
deeper
of questions
than the movie seemed to have.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's where it
started.
I think that's where it started to go, but then it kind of veered off track, like when the woman admits that she killed her baby. She's like, killed my baby.
Was the best part of the movie.
It was.
That was the only part that I felt like genuine emotion.
Yeah.
And that was the only part that, and I think you've probably talked about this before, like the Netflix look. This had the Netflix look.
Oh yeah.
It was just generic shots, generic everything, generic cinematography, everything. Yeah. That shot where she's doing that was like the only shot that I was like, wow, that was different. Yeah. They actually changed the camera angle.
It's so funny that Stranger Things, any episode from the last season looked more like a real movie than that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And this is coming supposedly from the director of the new Top Gun film.
Right, which is just weird.
Joe has told me.
Yeah, there have been rumors that Top Gun was largely ghost directed by McQuarrie and Cruise.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know how valid these are. These are just rumblings I've seen on Twitter.
Wow.
Because
I did think
it would be nonsense.
The Joe Kaczynski
Miles
name.
Teller in it, right? Coincidence?
I think not.
Miles, man.
Yeah.
You gotta learn to emote.
Yeah. He had nothing. And what was with the hair in the back?
It looked like he was trying to sport a mullet and it didn't work.
Why was the soundtrack all 80 songs?
Did
they have extra licenses from Stranger Things that they didn't get to use? And they were like, look, Kaczynski, we don't have money for this.
We've got some extra on
Pick
hand.
what you want.
Quite honestly, that was the only good thing about the movie was the soundtrack.
But didn't anybody else think the songs were just like, all right, we get it. You're beating me over the head with
She
it.
blinded me with science cue. It's like,
I mean, I was blinded by science, but it's like,
oh, you're putting it over a mad scientist. How original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so, the whole thing at the end, Or I guess really not at the end through the whole thing.
Joe's having
Oh, I was thinking about the speedboat monologue. That ruled.
That was terrible.
I'm not gonna
That
lie,
was
I
probably
kind
the
of
worst
tuned
thing.
out at that point. I saw, oh, there's the boat. They got off the island on a boat.
I wish there was a drug that could make you forget.
There
There's no
is.
drug like that. We have to do it on our own.
It's
Have a good life, everyone.
it wasn't forget, it was, what was it? It was self-forgiveness.
Yeah, that was
Which is
it.
weird because in the original Escape from Spiderhead, the whole story ends. It's supposed to make you feel sad. It's supposed to make you feel like
I felt sad.
it
for
makes
sure.
you sad and relieved
An hour and 41 minutes of my life.
and stuff
being
like that.
lost.
But I just kind of felt like
Well, what I will agree is what I found to be interesting is actually it wasn't the film, but it's the questions
credits.
that the film is trying to ask you as an audience. Amanda mentioned especially that most people, because there obviously are people that are devoid of empathy that do not mind inflicting harm on anyone.
Sociopaths.
Yeah.
But I think also as a society, and I think it's part evolutionary, I think it's to some extent where we're sort of trained to be able to discern, okay, that person's a potential threat, this person isn't. But going back to the fact of how society differentiates between those who, quote, merit our kindness and those who do not merit our kindness. And with people who are incarcerated, they fit into the latter category because the assumption
which
is
they don't always do.
Do.
Should.
Yeah. Like that if you're incarcerated, well, you did something to deserve the incarceration and you forfeit any humanity that you once had. So with Spiderhead, these people are essentially incarcerated. The illusion of freedom is that, as Dr. Abernathy tells Jeff, you could be in a state institution, you could be fearing for your life, but we give you freedom, you're not monitored, or so he makes them believe. You have quality food, you get to listen to music.
That's the question of free will
Yeah,
within the whole
Just
thing.
about that real quick, I love how he was like, oh yeah, you have the freedom to walk around, you can come to my quarters anytime. And then he does come up to the quarters, he's like, oh, what are you doing here? I'm surprised that you're here.
I
Yeah.
got
Nobody's
you.
ever done that before.
I got you arcade games, and it's joust. It's like, come on, man.
Because he basically he has this sort of exterior of there's calm, but there's a storm brewing beneath it. You can see that he is one step away from going over the edge. Dr.
he's
Abernathy.
And I wish that
Addicted to his own
wish
thing.
that they
Yeah,
had
he
taken
is.
that step.
But
Let him go over
But
the
I
edge.
think the issue is that you can see, and I'm going to go back to my original point. I'm going to try to conclude it soon. Is that especially with the inmates, they have this illusion. Well, you have volunteered, but essentially, how much choice do they have? It's either the relative comfort of this institution
or state prison. Yeah.
versus state prison, where you are essentially an animal in a cell,
Yeah.
and they supposedly agree to these experimentations, but Dr. Abernathy is not forthright with what exactly he's doing, and that wasn't a surprise to me. I don't know whether this was the intent of the film, but I knew where it was going. I wasn't under any delusion that Dr. Abernathy was this good guy who's doing this
No.
for
No,
the
he's big pharma.
Yeah.
but that's the question that they asked, basically, that do these inmates forfeit their humanity because they are incarcerated? And
Well, if you deem that free will is what makes us human, because that's
Yeah.
more of it kind of goes into more religious philosophy on that point, because if you go towards religious philosophy and the definition of free will on that point, that's something that essentially, like, you have a God who knows everything, sees everything, and is all powerful, and so he would know your future. And so there goes into the question, is if somebody is controlling you, regardless of the fact, do you really have free will in the first place? But that's what God says makes humans, is that we have the ability to choose and to make choices. But at the same time, it kind of goes inside here. If you think of the doctor as the God of this place, he basically tells you if you can leave or not, which I don't think he ever has any intention of letting anybody leave, because experiments,
The
unless
two of them
they're
were there
dead,
past their sentence time.
Yeah.
it's one of those things where, yeah, they didn't really have much of a choice. They did have a choice between the two. You could live your days in a state penitentiary and just kind of be holed up there and potentially die in that kind of a place. Or you could live comfortably as if you were living your normal life inside of like a nice resort, it felt like. You can have relationships. You can have children if you wanted, I'm sure. You can do whatever you want, but the one thing you have to do is... And this goes all the way back to the philosophical story of the people of Olmos, I believe, in which everybody is able to live a free and happy, carefree life, except for one person, and everybody has to... Almost, yes. I can never get the pronunciation, but there's one kid who is stuck in a room with no light, no nothing, and they all know about it. And so, like, what do? Do you...
Is he sort of like the one who takes on the sins of the community, that young boy?
Yeah, he takes on the sins of the community, essentially. So he is starved, he is left in this room, dark, he doesn't get to have any fun, don't do anything. He's basically tormented by being in solitary confinement for the rest of his life, but everybody has to know about it. And so, but you get to continue living your happy life. But this is kind of like almost a semi...
Yeah, it's an experiment.
There's a
I
lot
didn't
of
really get
experiments,
Amelos vibes.
It didn't,
Yeah,
but I felt like
like-
with everybody living carefree, but having the one...
I don't think they're living carefree,
The
though.
comeuppance of the whole thing. It's kind of like, but it affects everybody, not so much one person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
don't know,
I'm sorry, Joe.
I think Amelos is more of a fable of like capitalist society rather than
It can be, yeah.
incarceration.
This isn't Fairy Fable Librarians.
I mean, I agree with Simona. I agree with the points that you're making and all this other stuff. And I did see like the whole philosophical part of it. I just wish that they did it in a way that would, I don't want to say have it be more entertaining, but I don't think they did it good enough. You know what I mean?
It didn't do it good enough.
Well, yeah, you're definitely correct about everything you said. It's just they didn't execute any of that properly.
They didn't really
They
engage
didn't.
with the ideas they
Right.
presented.
Well,
They
the whole
just
point
sort of-
was that, like, at the end, he's like, oh, I wish we could just forget. And I was like, but wasn't the whole reason of this whole thing is, like, you saw all these horrible things going on. You saw firsthand everything. So maybe you should remember so that next time...
Who was he talking to?
He's talking to...
driving the boat,
Us,
telling
the
us
audience.
my final message.
He's talking to the water
change
and the
world.
fish and everybody else. But
Goodbye.
it's like, you shouldn't forget these things. I think that's the whole point, is that you shouldn't forget these things happen, because if you forget these things happen, you're gonna do it again.
Well, I think,
You know?
but I think that's also, and like I said, maybe these are the questions, or I believe these are the questions the film was trying to evoke within the audience. But a film that I think did it better is the 2002 film Equilibrium. And for those who aren't familiar with it, it stars Christian Bale. Sean Bean is also in it. And it's a society where the government has deemed that the root cause of war and evil are emotions. That if we can eliminate emotions from individuals, we will solve all war, all crime. And every citizen of this government must inject themselves with a drug that inhibits their ability to emote and to experience any emotions.
I have a feeling a lot of people would
Yeah.
want that nowadays.
Yeah.
But it's, and then there are people where they reject this, and basically they are accused of sense offense. They're considered sense offenders, and they're executed. But I think it addresses the issue where, in your drive for perfection, what are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing, for the sake of no war and peace, to deny yourself basic human rights, where a government can come in and say, okay, you're overstepping, you're feeling too much, you're a problem. And essentially, I think Equilibrium does a better job of asking these questions. But you see it too, where governments still do it. Obviously, it's not in the fantastical world of science fiction, but there are governments that say, we can bring peace, just you can't do this, you can't do that. And I think humans, for the most part, we want to live in safety. That's why we form communities. We form, whether you call them tribes or cliques, or we need to belong. Yes, there are people, but they're the extremes where they basically sort of go outside of society and say, I don't need anything or anyone.
They're abnormals.
But most people, they need a group. We need to be part of a collective. And I think, unfortunately, because we haven't yet discovered the magical wand where we could say, oh, serial killer, okay, no, we don't need this person in our midst. Sociopath, no, we don't need him. We don't have that. But
overpopulation.
But there is a good question. I mean, there was another drama. There's a recent K-drama called Hellbound. And Hellbound addresses this question where they basically supposedly have discovered the gene that can eliminate crime and sort of detect like a sociopath or a psychopath. And the idea is that if we can target this gene, then these individuals never need to be born. But the idea is who gets to decide that, because there are variables, like there are sort of where you think, it's sort of, what's that other film that's based on the Philip K. Dick novel? Where there's a crime unit that they use
Minority
Report. Yeah, it's the same thing, but you're sort of
psychopaths.
You haven't yet committed the crime, so if you haven't yet committed the crime, should you be held responsible for the crime?
That was the point in the anime for, which was basically Minority Report, which was psychopaths, where people are scanned for emotion, like how high their crime capabilities are, and they're measured way before, like they scan this girl who's stressed out after like this guy kidnaps her and she's like in a super stressed out state, so it mainly monitors stress, and the more stress you have, and just depending on the circumstances, can up your quantity to commit a crime, the ability to commit some kind of unspeakable crime, whether it means to shoot a gun or to like kill yourself or stuff like this. And so they stop it before it happens, or they explode people. But yeah.
This is a tangent, but you were talking about like the idea of like planning a perfect society. Have you guys ever heard of that SimCity project, Magnasanti?
Yes.
No.
Oh, it's hysterical. So like this guy designed the perfect SimCity, and it's just this nightmare world. The whole board's filled. It's all city. There are parking garages everywhere that somehow make money. There are no cars in the city. There are no roads. It is all subways everywhere. The only entertainment is the same library every block with zero funding, zero books in it.
Oh my god.
The police just are maximum funded. They're rated as like oppressive. It's just like this nightmare military state that runs perfectly.
Take notes.
Because that's true. Like, in order to achieve perfection, you have to sacrifice something. And I think, like, a lot of these stories that were written with, like, I remember there's this one story called The Lottery. It's a short story.
I love The Lottery. I did a whole project on The
And
Lottery.
I think it was made into, like, a made-for-TV movie where there's, once again, this perfect society, but it's achieved by killing one member at a certain time of the year from a lottery. So it's true, you have this perfection, but there's a darkness and insidiousness to the perfection, because humans cannot be perfect, and I think that's
it shows also how quickly people turn when it comes to a situation, because everybody's basically friends in the lottery. They're like the perfect suburban neighborhood where, you know, everybody knows everybody, they go to the same store, you know, everybody knows each other's kids, and their kids play with those kids and stuff like that. It's basically like the perfect white suburban neighborhood kind of setting, and then you have this whole dark underlying thing where someone has to die, and everybody turns so quickly. And that was the point of the lottery, is that someone gets the lottery, and I think it's her, if I'm not mistaken,
it's her daughter.
Yeah,
right?
it's the daughter who has to die. And she's like, no, and they fight over it, and people are like, just do it, just get over with. And that's like, you don't understand all this stuff. And it's basically, I think it's because there's an overpopulation in the town, and they have to kill somebody off every year because the population keeps growing.
Just one person?
Yeah.
I think
What
it's
kind of
one
difference
or
does that
two.
really
It's
much?
either one or two people have to go, but they
Yeah.
pick. They
Person
have
that
names
eats
of
the most.
everybody. But they have the names of everybody, and they have to pick out of the hat who it's going to
And
be.
another thing about Spiderhead, which is interesting, because when you look at some of the, and I think another issue is that a lot of the characters aren't developed. They come and go. You're supposed to feel something for them, but you don't know enough about them to really achieve that.
Well, this
Right.
was a short story, so
Yeah.
in general,
But I think
you're
if
only
you're-
going to get maybe 3
But
characters that
I
mean
think if you're
something.
adapting for film and you're expecting your audience to feel for this character, you have to do more.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I've seen movies with characters that I've known nothing about, and I felt for them.
Yeah.
And the
Miles Teller, unfortunately,
Was
does
not
not have that effect on people.
He does
But the
not.
guy who overate was a mood.
Oh, word. Yeah. He was a good character.
What
I
about
loved
the
it. It was like,
gentleman-
what's your problem? He's just like, they're like, how you feeling over there? And he's like, he
Hungry.
vomits into a bucket. And he goes, still hungry. And I'm like, that's my guy.
But
That's
you
my
know,
guy.
but I was thinking about, because when Dr. Abernathy says that they don't lock the doors, and I was thinking about, I think his name is Rory, the really muscular gentleman with the
Yo,
tattoos.
Rory was
Frightening.
scary.
Frightening.
And
And
when it came to
and
because it's
honestly-
during the sex bits.
But I honestly that's the part that got me thinking, because I'm assuming you could lock your door if you chose to, but there are women, although there seem to be more men than women in this institution,
As it is.
and considering that, especially Rory, Abernathy hints that he is a very violent offender.
Well, he admits that he killed one of his.
He murdered his wife. He threw her out of the building.
Yeah, but I'm
Yeah, he
saying,
murdered one of the guys though he did an experiment with. I think he drops at some point. He's
But-
just like, well, you're lucky you're not the last guy. It's like he killed that guy.
but think about it. There's no supervision. It's not like when they're not engaged in the experimentation, there's nothing to inhibit sort of your baser instincts. You're all
That's the
sort
point.
That's
Is that
the-
outside of being controlled of their emotions, they've given the freedom to do whatever they want, and so therefore, since the main question of this thing,
No,
the
I
more
understand
general
that.
is that what makes us human is that we don't want to hurt.
No, but
people.
I understand that. I get that point. My point was that how Abernathy is saying you have it very good here. There are no locks, but I'm saying it's not like, for example, that the pool of inmates is like, oh, he robbed a deli store and took a loaf of bread. Oh, she stole $5 from her sister's piggy bank. These are you have okay, he for example, the main character was drunk and reckless homicide. But then you have Rory, well, he threw his wife out an 8-story window. And this guy, yeah, he murdered 2. You have a wide range of individuals, and you're sort of projecting this illusion, oh, it's great here. Aren't you happy to be here? You're free to walk. But I'm saying, I wouldn't really feel comfortable leaving my doors unlocked if you have someone like Rory walking around who makes no attempt at civility. Like when he and Jeff are in the room together, I honestly thought that Abernathy was gonna
Maybe on his own, he doesn't really want to be around people. Maybe he's an introverted individual, and there are things that he's
And
quick
also,
to fuse.
it's the lesser of two evils. Is what Abernathy is trying to tell them, really. But I don't know. I didn't think what he was doing was really that bad. Abernathy.
No, there is a good side to the whole
No,
thing
no,
because
not even that it's good. Not even that it's good or bad or anything like that. It's just I'm not talking about morality here, but the part at the end where they're just where Miles Teller's yelling at him, being like, "Oh, Mark went to go get the police and everything like that." I was like, "What has he done that's illegal?" Mm-hmm. The woman killed herself during the experiment. They agreed to these experiments.
I think the
That's
problem
true.
is but I kind of, yes, they agreed, but I think they were lured under false pretenses. The reason why I say this because
he might
there's-
be doing the Twitter thing. He's
Because,
not giving us information.
because Dr. Abernathy at one point, do you remember the scene when he asked Jeff to choose who he would like to administer Darken Flocks to? He either Heather
Dark and flaws.
or Heather and I think I forgot Sarah. And Jeff expresses I don't feel good about it because I know what it feels like under the influence of this chemical and I don't want to put someone else through it.
They found us.
So Dr. Abernathy says, okay, let me consult with the board. You later find there is no board. Abernathy is essentially the head of this
Well, he's the
corporate-
CEO of the entire company.
So
yeah.
I think that alone, if he was lying about that, how much did he lie about other things? So yes, they technically volunteered, but they still volunteered under a false premise of like whatever they. I don't think Dr. Abernathy was 100% honest with the entire project.
And like he was giving them the obedience drug.
Yeah.
As well.
B6.
That's why it questions the sense of free will going on in the building.
By the way, the bingo card. When it's like the big dramatic music as he looks at bingo
the bingo
card.
card was so stupid.
They're naming it after bingo.
The lotto bingo card thing, I was like, I felt the same way. I was like, you could have just wrote a list or something, but you're just gonna
naming convention.
I thought it was.
You needed a way to name something you're not good at it. I guess a bingo slip's the best way to go.
But I also got maybe it was intended to convey the fact that he's being flippant with these individuals, and it's a game to him because bingo is a game. He's playing a game. So a literal game of bingo, and he's also playing a game with the lives of these inmates because he is aware that you cannot have a 100% controlled test. That doesn't really exist.
No.
He's not taking into consideration the variables, and if he is, he's being flippant with it. Like if you look at the character of Mark.
The word of this week is flippant.
Yeah, Mark is aware that, okay, these are human beings. Mark does see them as human. He says, you're not being honest. You're not taking into consideration what can be the adverse effects of these trials. You're not when you do a drug trial, one would assume, and you sign a document, yes, they will say you basically consent that, yes, there are possible side effects. These are the side effects. Like, when you listen to a drug commercial, they'll say, like, minor headaches, nosebleeds, major may cause heart attack, muscle. Basically, supposedly the drug company is being forthright. These are the possible consequences. Do you acknowledge these possibilities? Do you hold us not liable? And you'll say, yes, I have read it. You've been honest with me. Then yes, if I happen to die, the company has done their due diligence. I cannot hold them responsible. Abernathy is not doing this. He is being deceitful from the very beginning. So yes, he has committed a crime.
Well,
and in the end, I felt like he got away with. But he got away with murder. His death was.
Sounds like he deserved it.
Well, because. No, he didn't deserve a death. What he deserved, what he merited, was basically you violated these rights. You forfeit. I don't know. I think the death you're supposed to feel because he's crying as he's flying off into the sunset. He doesn't merit. He doesn't merit that sort of pity from me because he has shown none. Like, I can understand if he legitimately felt, I am doing what is right. I really feel that I'm going to benefit society. I didn't get that from him.
I think I think they tried to say that he was doing that. Again, they didn't execute it well. We could talk about the morals, and we could talk about the morality of everything. All I'm saying is the execution of the film was
was not as good as it could have been. Was it an interesting concept? Yes. Yeah. I mean, there always a good and a bad. That's what these kinds of things tend to deal with. It's like the good and the bad. There's the good of the drug that it could do because we see it today in our own societies, like when it comes to like depression medicine and stuff like that. They're mood stabilizers. Mm-hmm. They're there to help you, with the chemical imbalance of emotion. Yeah. And brain function. Yeah. But you have this thing which in the beginning it kind of showed like it had some good things about it where you could up someone's the laughing thing was a little weird, but you could make someone if you could make yourself happy, I'm sure in today's society people would buy a drug just like that if they could feel happy.
But that drug exists. It's just illegal right now.
Yeah, so then you have drugs let's say you are someone who is emotionally void because there are people out there that are emotionally void of emotion. You could actually feel something. And then there's the dangerous ones like the fear. Like she was scared of a stapler. Yeah. She was like, "Get that thing away from me!" And you're like, "It's a stapler." But God forbid.
But the trouble is, once the government, it's like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Whenever the government.
Whoa.
I don't think the road here was paved with good intention, but I think that you could.
Yeah,
what's that quote from?
This was all giant corporate gain. You could sell this stuff to the military and
But
Perfect soldiers.
But emotions are important. Like I think almost like the idea that, if we rid people of emotions, that's not going to solve problems, because I can be laughing hysterically listening to the Rwandan genocide.
But the problem is
I don't.
Yeah.
Like I think like people who want to rid the world of emotions are like imaginary.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's very difficult to do that, but you have things like, unfortunately, like there's problems with the police now.
Mm-hmm.
And so the problem with police stations right now is that people have depression, and now we're starting to kind of fit into the society mental health.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of cops that when they go in, they do have mental health problems, but they don't talk about it, and they don't want to talk about it.
Right.
Because a cop that has, a mental instability of some kind it's not cut out. He could pull the trigger too early on a situation.
Like
you could
Leonardo
end up
DiCaprio
doing things.
in The Departed.
So if you would give them like a drug that would maybe, if you gave them something like at Spiderhead, you could control and have like the perfect cop.
Right.
If you wanted to, even in the military and stuff like that, you could.
As long as it's optional.
You could, as long as it's optional. But then they
yeah,
have
but
to
then
live
you
their
have
lives.
a whole other host of problems.
I'm not saying it's a total fix to
I'm
it.
just saying, like, these ideas aren't even being floated.
No,
like,
well,
this movie exists to say, that thing you think is bad, guess what?
It's bad.
It is
Like,
bad. No, I'm not saying that's not the issue. I'm looking at like kind of like these things could exist and that these things
but just
could
because,
happen.
but like in theory.
But just because
Yeah.
these things aren't realized now, it doesn't mean that the concept behind control and basically maintaining absolute control is not a fiction.
You don't even have to really go that extreme. I mean, the Chinese government still censor like Facebook and Google, and like I think there was this interview, I don't even know how many years ago, but a reporter. You're just gonna throw an arbitrary number out there, Lil?
I know exactly what you're going to bring up.
Oh, do
24.
A reporter went to China and started showing students, college students, pictures of the tank man of the school.
Tiananmen Square.
Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
Of the student who stood in front of a tank in Tiananmen Square after the student protests were essentially moved. I don't know how else to describe it, but I mean, no one knew what that was. It's the Soviet Union. So the concepts are not fictional.
Yeah,
but let me finish. Okay. Let me finish my point.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe. But it's not fictional. It is real world, but it doesn't work because humans are innately curious. We are innately emotional, but we want to find stuff out. So it doesn't.
It's just like, I don't know. I think there's a lot to be said about like the control of information.
Yeah.
But the control of emotion isn't really I don't know. I don't see any political platform with that getting very popular.
No.
It'd be like, no, you can't be happy anymore, actually. Like
until they generate the idea, basically, yes. When something is insidious, you can't outright say, we want to control and manipulate you. Who? Do you vote for me? It doesn't work that way.
I'm just saying, like, usually controls of populations have more to do with controlling the flow of information rather than
emotions.
Controls of emotion.
But what if you could make someone a mindless zombie that would do whatever you
want?
But
now
that's
you're
what
just
social media does.
Television. It's social media, and now you're just Internet. It's a what if thing. I mean, it's
now
but I'm saying
TV set.
no, but I'm saying what I'm saying though, the idea, if you control someone's emotion, if you control, like, the idea that you would want to control someone's emotion is not so far-fetched, because if you
it happens all the time.
It just happened on the January 6th.
Yeah.
Controlling people's emotions.
That's manipulating, not really.
But that's controlling.
Manipulating and controlling basically
are the
go
same
hand
thing.
in hand. The reason you manipulate someone is to gain control of something.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately.
So why does the government do that, Amanda?
Because they want control.
All right.
That was my point. Is that they manipulate.
I just
Yes.
think the movie's dumb and
Yeah.
doesn't articulate its points well, and ultimately doesn't really apply to much.
I
think this conversation was deeper than that entire movie.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I agree, absolutely.
You
Well,
know,
because
no
the
disrespect to
themes
George
in it.
Saunders. I've heard he's a very funny writer. I've
Yeah.
heard he's a very intelligent writer. I'm sure the story's good.
I
but
think
this
the
adaptation, oof.
I mean, I think the thought
it.
behind it
Some
was
thoughts.
good, but
I
the
do know, like,
execution
little
of it fell completely and utterly flat.
It was
I think
it was
the
flippant.
ending. Flippant.
It was flippant indeed. So I have to bring up a couple of things about the movie itself.
You look
The
pained.
the car accident.
I
When
didn't
he
understand what happened. What
Flies
did he do?
through he crashes and flies
accident?
and
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
he was drunk.
He hit a tree.
Yeah, he had a tree.
Oh,
Yeah.
so he got a DUI.
No,
No,
And
he
murder.
killed several
No, he-
Manslaughter.
people,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
He
So it
killed
was
his
manslaughter
girlfriend and
and
his
DUI.
friend.
yeah,
Gotcha.
the two of them died. But he
One friend died.
No, it's
two of them. The girl
it's
died too.
Yeah.
The
It's
girlfriend
revealed
died.
afterwards that his girlfriend
Yeah.
died as well. The car exploded with her.
Yeah,
in it.
they
He
didn't
couldn't
do
get
that
her
very
out.
well. It's
They
very
didn't do that very well then. Okay.
So he goes through the windshield, presumably. Flies. Body's hopping across the ground.
I like that.
Just gets right up from it. No scratches on him whatsoever.
No, he did. He has the
Oh,
scars
right.
on his.
You're right. I'm so sorry. He had one scratch on his face.
Didn't break his arm.
Yeah.
No scratches.
Yeah.
No.
No
sorry.
broken
charge,
leg.
No
But
nothing.
I'm assuming some time has passed.
He just magically healed? But then he goes and takes his friend out of the car, and his friend is dead, and his friend, maybe again, has maybe a little bit of blood down his face. Goes to get his girlfriend out of the back seat. She's not helping at all. She's just sitting there.
She was dazed. She was disoriented.
She had a concussion, Louis.
She might have been disoriented. I don't know. The car's on fire. It explodes, and he just flies backwards. That's it.
Well,
Like, come on.
no, believe it or not, it has happened. I have read stories where there have been horrific accidents, like DUI collisions, where the driver has emerged without a scratch, but the person that they hit sustained.
He went through a windshield.
I know, but my point is, it has happened. There have been people that you would expect the injuries to be severe, but they have gotten out of a situation with minor injuries at best. I mean, granted, maybe.
They could have put a little bit of more blood on him or something.
But I think.
I mean, that's true,
But I think maybe. But I think
Movies.
maybe it was probably his memories, because what I did appreciate was because when you first see the accident. Because I think it's also how he wanted it to go in his mind. Because when you first get that flashback, the girlfriend doesn't even go with them in the vehicle. And then you see that he gets a phone call and he talks with her and he says, I realize I've been leaving all these messages. I want to say I'm sorry. Then you see another flashback to the car accident. He flies through the window. His friend is dead. And then in the final reveal, which I think is him finally acknowledging, this is what I did. This is how it
Did
happened.
you use that word on purpose?
That's
Acknowledging.
what sucks. That's what's
No, I
contradictory
didn't
about
even
the
think,
end.
I didn't even think about it.
Acknowledge.
And I think when he finally acknowledges the reality of what he did, that's when you get the full picture of the accident.
Yeah, he still got right up from it, but
Well, he didn't. Well,
was a problem to me.
He was a bit dazed. There was a moment of
Dazed and
I think that's just Miles Teller's face, though.
So you know what we're gonna do, Lou? Let's write to the directors. We'll film
Just
the
put a
next
picture
day.
next
Next
to you,
time,
uncanny.
view an actual car crash scene and make it more realistic.
Louis, go get in a car crash right
just
now.
think
Make it
I
more
think
realistic.
it is lazy filmmaking. I think it was lazy.
And you have every right to acknowledge that lazy filmmaking.
You have every right to your opinion, but you're
Wait,
wrong.
I gotta check the budget for this picture.
They
I
probably
gotta-
spent it all on the actors,
Yeah.
and that the rest of it was.
Well, whereas I agree with you, Simona, and I agree because there have been stories of where a drunk driver has had head-on collisions with people and have been fine.
He must have really good airbags.
Yeah, but
There were no airbags.
Well, and when you
Well,
look
who made this car?
when you look at the car, when you look at the time frame that the accident's supposed to happen in, and it's just like he went through a windshield. You would think that his
And he was going fast.
yes, he was. And he hit the tree hard enough that it killed his friend instantaneously. And he went through a windshield. You would think that he would have a broken leg or a broken arm or
some fracture.
Perhaps the
broken
writers,
rib.
Perhaps the writers sort of figured that the character was going to suffer enough later on, considering the emotional trauma he experiences while he's in
He's got
Spiderhead.
plot armor.
So
He's got plot armor.
I guess they wanted to spare him, like having a disfigured Picasso
Look,
face.
he's gonna find out his new girlfririend killed her baby. You know,
It was actually a Vanilla Sky situation.
They were all just bingo card experiments.
I can't find any official status on the budget for this. But according to some trash website, this might have cost over $100 million.
It's
What
Netflix.
the hell? Where did it go?
Wow. Yeah.
nowhere good.
Well, but I honestly believe, Lou, that you have some legitimate points with regards to
100
the
million, was that the one the world
execution
of
of
real?
that particular sequence in the film.
I don't know if I believe it.
And honestly, like, I
numbers,
kind of like the
financial
hints that they gave with, like, why he has that scarring, and then the eventual reveal of that he was in this horrific accident because he didn't have the, like, forethought to say, I am terribly drunk, I shouldn't drive.
Oh yeah, don't drink
People
and drive,
do that
kids.
all the time, though.
No, they don't, and they shouldn't.
Responsible
shouldn't.
people don't.
Yeah.
Irresponsible people do.
But sometimes, alcohol
No.
doesn't hit till a little later.
Well, actually, no.
It's like tequila, it doesn't hit you right then. It hits you. It's like a ghost pepper. It hits you a little later.
With that scene, they
We
were
don't
on
condone
fire.
drinking
Yeah,
and
they
driving.
I
felt-
don't condone it. I'm just saying sometimes you think you're fine and it hits a little later.
I had a question about the man that overeats.
I love that man.
Was he supposed to have some kind of eating disorder?
We don't know.
Who knows?
We don't know if he was being
We
controlled to eat
have
all the time.
no idea.
It could have been a drug because they had him in a room at first and they literally were like, how you feeling in there? And he's like, he threw up and he was like, I'm still hungry.
What was the point? Was that supposed to be like a dietary supplement, like maybe appetite control?
We don't know. We
don't know.
weren't told.
He
Yeah,
was kind
literally, we have no context.
We don't know the
whatsoever.
name of that one.
Just
No.
like most of the rest of the movie, there's no context.
Yeah.
To pretty much anything.
But maybe that's the whole point.
Then
Maybe-
it's a
maybe
really
like-
convoluted,
47
stupid
million
movie.
to the
Like,
local
how many
economy.
times in our lives do we experience moments without context? And we're left wondering, what was the point of
See,
this all?
but you see, I don't want to have to think that hard when I'm watching a movie.
I don't mind thinking that hard if there is actual evidence of things happening and like it's something that I can actually piece together. There was nothing.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
you just...
It's
Here's
hard
the
to
thing.
make. Sometimes it's
No, no,
hard to
I
make like
was
short
aware.
stories.
I'm aware.
These are like
It was crap.
these are like
messing with
things
you,
to
Lou.
say about like an art film that's
Yeah.
very intentionally like withholding information from you.
Right.
This movie was not that. This movie,
No.
I think it wanted to be.
I don't think
So
so.
do you-
This was so slick.
do you-
Yeah.
They have some information about some
Yeah,
of the money
but that's
they
just, like,
spent.
the investments they
Australia.
got, yeah.
Well, they gave 21.58 million investment from the Australian government.
Well, do
My
any
God.
But
of
that
them-
probably all went to Hemsworth.
You know, they
Well,
didn't make
and
wide
47
investment
million
there,
to
but
the
I
local
wish the
economy.
U.S. government actually invested in the arts.
The production
you
created
look at France and
360
stuff; they
local
fund such
jobs.
cool things.
Yeah.
Here, it's just like no, we have to fight for tooth and nail for PBS
It's
funding.
sports.
Yeah, right.
Well,
It's
Well,
sports.
is there a film that you think sort of addresses the concept but does it better? Like, do you have a favorite film that has a similar kind of concept?
To this?
Well, not
there are a lot. It depends on your.
I still think like The Matrix is more or less the gold standard in terms of like methods of control
Yeah.
depicted
There's
in
even
sci-fi
like I would even
context.
go willingly far enough to say like American Psycho because Chris Hemsworth gives off the
You mean
kind of
Christian
the-
Bale?
Christian Bale. No, Chris
He-
Hemsworth from Spiderhead
gives
off vibes of very American Psycho-esque vibes in which
yeah.
he's kind of deluding himself into
God,
kind of doing things.
Like having a
American
God
Psycho,
complex.
Such a
Yeah.
good movie.
It
such
is.
an awful.
I feel
book.
like this was a lot of people I noticed online were talking a lot about kind of the similarities between American Psycho and Chris Hemsworth in Spiderhead, but they were all kind of down. They felt like this was kind of like a weird sequel-esque feel to American Psycho, and I said I can see it, but I don't think
The
it's
difference
enough
is American
to
Psycho
really
is
be
funny.
American Psycho.
But with
Considering
American,
there's already a
Harry-
sequel.
but with American Psycho,
We
is
don't
it
talk
actually
about
taking place in his head, or he's actually doing?
I mean,
we don't know.
it's left up to
I
interpretation.
think I think that's up
Because
to you to decide. Yeah.
because when you find out he's
Okay.
taking the
And-
drug himself, how much control does he really have on anything that's actually happening? Or
Yeah.
like, where is he? He
But-
seems high off these drugs constantly.
But yeah, like the whole
Yeah.
gag with American Psycho is like even if it's not in his head, he wouldn't face any consequences because he's a rich white Wall Street
And he
guy.
clearly
Yes.
knows how to clean up, and that's a key key strategy, you know?
Okay.
Mary Herron's such a good director, and it's such a shame she was just exiled.
Yeah.
So I think we can all agree that Spiderhead was very underwhelming.
Oh yeah.
And-
It was a Netflix movie, so I wasn't
Not.
I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't expecting a lot from a standalone Netflix film.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad.
I kind of put that in
you've been so
mid-range
disillusioned.
usually.
It's kind of making me a little nervous for the Gray Man because that's one of my favorite books.
But I think I think you shouldn't allow
read the
this
book?
experience to sort of rob you of all hope that this next film that we're gonna watch will be a good one.
I just need some N40, and then I'll be good to go.
There's always hope.
know?
There's always the
And-
chance that things can be better.
You know what? If he wanted to, why didn't he just give Miles Teller N40 again? Have him fall in love or think he's in love, and then make him pick the Darka Phlox or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yo, I loved
Dumb.
what that drug did. I loved seeing how people got so angry, and I was just like, "This is what it does." It looks so cool. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, "That is a drug." I feel like would be made, could be made, probably is
That's
made.
called taking a
Adrenaline.
lot of.
So I get it's so funny because I was talking earlier with Allison how most of the time there's never like a universal consensus like we hate this movie on this. This is gonna break that streak where most of us, not hate, it's a strong word, but most of us I guess didn't.
I think hate's pretty appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hate what?
I'm giving
Spiderhead.
I'm giving this one.
I don't think I
one
hated
bag.
it.
Bag.
Yeah,
I don't
one,
think-
one bag of 5, not 5 bagger, one bagger.
I don't think I hated the movie. I liked the beginning and I like seeing
like it.
what the concept is going to be.
It had
'Cause as I
potential.
said, sci-fi always has such a fun way of talking about. As someone who studied philosophy in college and stuff like that, it's one of my favorite subjects to go after, especially when I read. That's predominantly why I like horror because it's usually a social commentary on something. So sci-fi always finds a new, fun, creative way of, picking a problem, talking about it, having a commentary, and then coming up with either a solution or seeing the downside of something.
Yeah.
And so I saw where this was going, and I was curious to see how they would interpret it. I thought it was an interesting concept. I loved the, the incarcerated people coming in and having, a whole thing, but knowing that this either isn't real or, I wanted to see where it went, and I don't think it can be really hard to flesh out a philosophical idea, although it was already written for them,
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't
but
have to do any work.
It's like
out the window.
I agree. I'm not hating on science fiction
Yeah.
at all. I enjoy science fiction.
Yeah.
And I'm not hating on the concept of what this movie was trying to do. Trying being the operative word in that sentence.
Yes.
They did not succeed.
Yeah, I don't think
Everything-
the execution. I thought
Everything
up to,
that they did
halfway.
fell extremely flat. And
Yeah.
I hated every single minute
I
of
did
it.
think it did a pretty good job, especially when it came to the sex scenes and stuff like that, where they had the two people in the room.
You thought
I thought
you
that-
thought they did a pretty good job with
I
those
thought they
scenes?
did a good job of making you feel a bit uncomfortable knowing that he was in a relationship
Yeah.
and they were forcing him to do it. And then after the first time, they made him do it over and over and over again. It
That
did
wasn't
make me
shown,
feel.
though, was it?
They
only
didn't
did-
show
he only did it
explicit,
twice,
super
I thought.
explicit, but they had them in there and you knew what they were doing and you saw the motions.
Yeah.
going
No,
on.
no, I meant you said they had him do it over and over.
Yeah, I
over
thought
and
he
over
only did
again.
it twice.
Well, then
Yeah,
they
it
put
was-
the big strong guy and he thought that's where it was going to go. And so I felt like, oh no.
Yeah.
that guy's gonna break him.
They had to get a nice little gay panic joke in there. They were
gay.
like, "Hey, it's 2005 again, folks."
Oh my
But it was like I just
God.
saw the mere size of the guy, and I was like, he's gonna break him. But it makes you uncomfortable because they kind of set up that character has a life and he has a girlfriend, and they seem to be doing pretty well. They cook fancy like brioche, little
Snacks.
Snicker snacks, and
Yeah, I don't know.
then they like put him in a room with another woman, and they're like, how do you like that? It was super cringy.
Yeah.
But it was like bad cringy, and it did make you feel a little uncomfortable because you're like, oh no, don't do it.
Yeah.
Can you hold on to it? But the drug makes you want to do it. So it's like, and then how you gonna tell her later? And
But they didn't
He didn't
play
seem to have any turmoil. about
exactly.
any
Yeah,
of
they
it.
Yeah.
didn't play
After the first
any of
one,
that
I felt
up.
like he kind of did, but that might just be the way he acts. But I felt like maybe he was
But
gonna.
but I thought it did because he avoided the snack runs.
Yeah, he
with
started
Lizzie.
avoiding
Yeah,
just a
but-
tad, and then he ran into that woman again, and he was just like, oh.
Yeah, but there, I don't know. There wasn't any chemistry to me whatsoever. There was a little bit of chemistry when the girl that stabbed herself in the neck walked into the room
that
and they
scene
sat
was
there.
intense. I was so into it.
That was about the only part
Yo,
for me where there was any chemistry.
You didn't think the Santa Claus bit was?
Yeah, I mean,
Ironically, I thought he kind of looked like the Tim Allen Santa Claus, but when he's the toy and Tim Allen in Santa Claus 2, when Tim Allen has to go to Earth, or not Earth, I guess, but go to America.
Oh my God!
I thought he kind of looked like the toy Santa
Yeah.
Claus, right?
There was a Santa Claus scene? No, I must
Santa
have
Claus,
He put on
yeah.
the
He
shaving
puts
cream
on
and
shaving
go-
cream.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
just.
and he gifts her the stocking.
Okay, for some reason I was expecting legit that he had dressed up as. I completely forgot the whole. Yeah.
See,
That's
the
okay.
movie
So
was
all in
so
all-
bad you forgot the
Legit.
scene.
See,
Yeah,
all in
I
all,
guess.
we think this movie was definitely on the bottom tier of Netflix movies, but maybe
And
I'd give it, like,
we'll
maybe
find
in the
we'll find out
50s,
we'll find
like,
out next
low
week that it's
50s,
the most
whatever
watched
people
movie on Netflix. Or
I-
of
something.
course it is because they have nothing else to watch.
No, I highly doubt
They've
it.
watched
I think
everything.
The reviews have been kind of mixed with this.
It's kind of in the mid-range,
No,
like
I
low,
think
like
I watched it
high
this morning,
40s.
and I think they were saying like, "Oh, it's number 2 on Netflix," which
It's number
it's
one
all
stream.
lies anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Are you saying that Netflix lies?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That's
Well,
why they
that-
got rid of the
that
like
shatters
actual
my-
like recommendation thing where that's like that. Now they just do like what YouTube does, which is a thumbs up, thumbs down
No,
thing. but you
now
don't
they
see-
made it thumbs down, thumbs up, 2 thumbs up, and it's just like
Oh, did they really?
Netflix
Yeah.
just
Yeah, they
bring
did.
back the stars at this point. You're-
right.
But I thought there was
I
a
actually pay
way
attention to
to
those.
still have like, because I know Netflix emailed me because they wanted me to fill out this quiz, which I gave up after a while because it was just annoying me. But I thought eventually you could go to the stars feature on your profile. I was trying to find it.
No, they
Not
got rid
that
of
I've
it
seen,
too.
but
Thumbs up,
there
thumbs
might- it
down,
might
so
be
they can
hidden in
recommend
there.
you more things.
Oh, did they give a reason why they got rid of the stars
I
feature?
think they were just like, it's too complicated.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
People are like, should it be
Oh,
3 stars or 4?
it's like-
I don't know.
But that's like asking why did they up their membership prices? You know,
Because they're
it's-
making crap movies like Spiderhead.
Because they got to spend
That's
$100 million
why.
on movies like Spiderhead.
Netflix, this is a dog of the week.
Yeah.
All right.
You
But-
guys are so flippant, Netflix.
So today's podcast brought to you by the word.
Flippant.
The more you know.
But I will say, if for anybody who is interested, has seen Spiderhead, and actually wants to get a feel for the actual short story, we do carry it here at the Mayapack Library.
Can I just say, watch Ex Machina.
Go watch Ex Machina.
Much
but
better.
Then,
That's on Canopy.
But
You
if
can
the
get it at
concept,
Forest too.
I like
if the
it.
concept of Spiderhead interests you, I recommend reading George Saunders' original. It's a short story located in a book called 10th of December. It's a bunch of short stories written by him. He was also the author of the famous book that came out in 2017, Lincoln and the Bardo.
Oh.
That was very popular. So if you were a fan of Lincoln and the Bardo, I honestly recommend trying out some of his earlier works. It's always fun to go back and see what range authors have, because we've seen George R.R. Martin write everything at this
Except
point.
for the next
and James
Game of Thrones book.
Patterson. He wrote that one sci-fi book that I remember when I first worked here called like Destroy All Humans or something.
Oh yeah.
Every older woman who checked that book out hated it. They were like, "This is the worst," but I'm sorry, James.
This isn't the James I know.
Exactly. exactly. They were like, this
He
isn't
wouldn't
really
do
like him.
this.
I'm like, well, it's technically not written by him. It's just his name is on it. He slapped it on there.
Joe's gonna have to trim so
No,
much
he's
of this.
not. Freedom.
Jeez. Ooh, Braveheart. Say it.
Freedom!
Katie's favorite movie.
You can
No!
take my life, but
No.
you can never take my freedom.
No.
Aye.
Don't listen to Joe. No. I'm not even going to go into it because.
When Amanda says freedom, can we have Mel Gibson's face appear, Joe? Or like
I have
kinda
red
like the
hair.
clip?
I can let my hair go.
There you go.
Oh my God, no.
Paint half your face.
All right. Take us out.
And with that, I think we'll end today's podcast here. Check out our libraries, check out the books, check out our programs. We've got all the teen, children, and we also have the adult reading schedule up officially. So come get a packet, read 4 books, bring it back, and you enter your chance for a raffle, end of the season raffle. And there's always some really fun prizes like gift cards or a basket or something. I haven't checked to see what the prize is yet, but you can always be sure that it will be amazing. So with that, I think we'll say goodbye and we'll see you guys next week.
It was a nice speedboat, though, in the movie. I will say that.
Oh.